on our stream at facebook.com/Talk El Paso. It's 4 p.m. Mountain Time, and that means it's time to talk El Paso with Andrew J. Polk.
Thank you all so very much for joining us here for Talk El Paso, airing live on News Radio 690 KTSM. I'm your host, Andrew J. Polk. Thank you for tuning in, however you may be doing so, be it on air, online, live streaming through the free and reliable iHeartRadio app, or joining us over on the various social media pages we're up on these days, facebook.com/Talk El Paso, the Talk El Paso channel over on YouTube, Twitter at Talk El Paso, or twitch.tv, Andrew J. Polk. We take all those comments, put up all those things in all those ways in order to make it the most accessible to y'all in order to, well, continue our mission. Live local talk radio here in the borderland and discussing those issues like no one else is going to, besides those that like affected by them, live here, see them day to day, those simple kind of factors, because I'm not going to say I'm tired of anything we talk about, though there are maybe some more tiresome topics, but really anytime it's someone telling us how we think, how we feel, as opposed to like engaging the discussion about it, yeah, that's usually not going to fly. And one of the reasons we do the many things that we do in those online spaces and so much more. So phone calls a little bit later in the show, as we usually do. Going to be another one of those split-ish days because, yeah, we're in election season. Not all rules are off the table, but we're definitely bending a number of them, including maybe not so much ruled as guidelines with how we progress the show. Again, we will still be taking phone calls, but today going to be one of those split interview days. Hour one of our program today going to be, well, in general, we're going to be focusing on county races. So in hour one, next segment, going to be talking with Sergio Coronado, Democratic candidate for the County Commissioners Precinct number 4, closing out our coverage of that race with both candidates now interviewed. And then in hour 2 of the program, we're going to be joined here in studio is the current plan. Some things are in flux, of course, with El Paso County Judge Ricardo Samaniego. There's a possibility we have to switch to the phone line, but the plan is in studio here, and hopefully we'll be able to have that full on-camera interview for you. So one of the reasons I mentioned the social media is you can see that kind of stuff, but even if you're driving, even if you need to be able to do it safely later on, of course, these replays will be available on social media as well, but delving into their campaigns and, of course, some of the major issues on, well, not exactly on the ballot. Some of them are on the ballot, but also very much leading in the minds of the whole lot of people in the area. So some of our interviews coming up today on those, so stay tuned for that. But of course, there's a lot of other, well, there's more election news, I'm not going to lie. There's some more details coming out from the first inkling of where we are when it comes to early voting. Some interesting analysis being put out there, some vote totals, but also some retrospectives. How does it compare to previous years so far? I mean, yeah, it's the first day. But trajectories, we talk about those a lot, and the arc and span and where we're headed. And so starting to see, I mean, one point of data is still one point of data, but seeing where that might be leading up and particularly how it compares, it get educational in its own right here, but also some very interesting things coming out of City Council, including both action happening today on weeds and researching them. I'm talking about the kind on the curb, not the kind, well, in the land of enchantment anyway, that has been very enchanting to some people, but also more delving into from some, well, familiar names in our coverage about what is going on with city manager contracts and what does the salary cap even actually mean? Plus some other interesting things going on, including new faces in federal enforcement and ports of entry, specifically in our area, and a whole lot more. So jam-packed day is the kind of too long didn't listen, read, TLDL, it doesn't quite work. In any case, if you're locked in with us, we got quite a lot to go into today. So let's dive right into it. From our news partners there at KFOX 14, El Paso votes to research growing weed problem, vote on further action later. Now, as I have made a point of previously, and our news partners do there as well, that when it comes to you and me in our front yards, if you have that kind of ground maintenance issue, because I mean, yeah, there are condos and those kind of things in town, apartments where, yeah, you pay part of your thing to have that taken care of. But for the vast majority of El Pasoans, those who are either owning or renting a single family dwelling, which is, I've actually seen a breakdown, but it's just drive around. It's a lot of town or multifamily, whatever, ground level residential, what I'm talking about here. You can, of course, be fined if your weeds are getting too high, 12 inches or over, again, as noted by our news partners there at KFOX 14. But they're actually looking at some further changes to that, among other things. I have suggested that if you do end up getting one of those fines, not sure if they're ever actually happening anymore. Anyone who's gotten one out there, let me know. I'll be very curious, because my recommendation, somewhat tongue-in-cheek, this is not legal advice, would be to take a picture of what has been going on in city medians in different parts of town and just texting back saying, diss you. But, of course, the city has been doing some cleanup efforts and other things like that. And now interesting action from city council on that point, actually proposing, City Rep Henry Rivera, proposing a moratorium that would waive the fine for people with disabilities or people over the age of 65 and not having the total capability. And, of course, the rains and the decent consistency of them. Not like constantly. We're not becoming Seattle by any means, but the fact that it's happened pretty consistently, like on a weekly basis over the last few weeks does, or months really at this point, makes it seem that it is also maybe a little bit of leeway is necessary. And so the amount of, well, just moving parts, as it was discussed during city council, making it seem that there might be more research needed into how to actually handle the response, both in terms of what you and I are in charge of or charged with in some cases, but also when it comes to what the city should or shouldn't be doing. So not a solution vote on yet, but they're going to research and give a report back on what is needed to. Previously reported on that there are some 300 some odd medians of course, varying lengths and positions throughout the city that the city is in charge of. Though I will say it seems like there might technically be more, though I might also be technically thinking of those state throughways. Anytime you got a number like Highway 20 or something like that by a street that you otherwise has a name, Paisano comes to mind, or Montana, those are technically then state rights of way and that kind of thing, which is why it's kind of an urban myth, but somewhat true that that's why you see more state troopers on them. In any case, point is that there's still a lot of them, and even though this seems like more may be getting added and have been certainly a focus, so it's literally going to take research to figure out what the actual mounted city response to this is going to be. And that's actually an interesting juxtaposition to another story that we will probably be delving into further tomorrow if you get to look at the byline here from, of course, our news partners there at KFOX 14, Estefania Seifert, specifically looking into some of the contract amendments that have been a part of, well, the city manager's contract. Tommy Gonzalez, again, just because we've been talking about them, and we do have an interview scheduled, more updates later on, with Tony Gonzalez, the Texas 23rd congressional representative and Republican in that right. Remember, Tommy is the El Paso guy, or the El Paso city manager, I should be more specific. Tony is the one that represents the 23rd congressional district. Just, I know, we need, maybe we should start applying nicknames here, but in any case, Tommy Gonzalez, his contract and the caps on it have been more than a little bit contentious. And so if you really want to take a look at it right now, they've got some interesting details. Well, actually, the full, how many pages? 11-page contract amendment. If you want to sleep very soundly and or go mildly cross-eyed, as I was trying to do neither of, but you can delve into some of the details there. Some of the more important headlines, I guess, coming out of it is that, yes, there is a salary cap, $450,000 per year, with any increases above that going towards the City of El Paso's Streets Department for street improvements. Now, that leaves me with a few other questions, and I am sure we will be talking with Estefania Seifert about that in the upcoming interviews we, of course, regularly have with her, because knowing exactly what does that mean, given the fact that the streets and things like that have been more than a little bit of contentious, and among other things, El Paso Matters out earlier this week has a more detailed breakdown of what is in the city's $272 million bond proposal, the vast majority of which would be going towards street improvements. And I will say, as much as I may have sounded like I was poo-pooing Erica Castillo with, again, our news partners there at KFOX 14 last time I spoke with her about I haven't had those pothole problems, I do not deny that they exist. I mean, seriously, there's so many swervings I've had to do. Haven't hit anyone and plan on not doing it, but I've seen people almost hit each other just trying to get around some of the, I mean, when do they stop being potholes and start being like craters? Like, I feel like we need other terminology at this point, because pothole is just, so it could be everything that's like, a little gap in the street to the thing that you're going to lose a sedan into. Okay, maybe that's a sinkhole at that point, but you get my point that we maybe need to be a little bit more creative with our terminology to express a grading scale, perhaps. So you have your basic potholes, your chip marks in the road, to your gaping chasms of the mines of Moria. I don't know, we're getting a little bit too descriptive here, but point is that the focus on this is going to continue, and of course on the ballot in its own right. We'll have more discussion on that. But of course, elections and the things going on with them, some of the details coming out from early voting. I at least wanted to make a mention of this. We have the stats out for day one that in total of all of the votes put in person at the very many different voting locations, we hit just shy of 9,000 for this period. And including mail-in ballots returned so far on the first day, about 11,700, give or take. 11,786 if you really want to know. Point is that there's an interesting analysis also done by El Paso Matters in this case, showing that we are still well behind, at least on the first day, the pace set back in 2018, one of the record-centered midterm election voting times. About half of that total, they have the nice graphical breakdown showing that total amount of actual in-person was about 17,000 in 2018 versus, again, the just shy of 9,000 this time around. And if you want to get really depressed, they have an even further retrospective on, well, not exactly retrospective, previous reporting on what the total was back in actually 2020 when we broke records, and there was roughly 19,000 people who voted in person in the first day of early voting. So, midterms are always a little bit fraught with apathy, lack of information, etc., some of which we're trying to fix here, even though it's an ongoing and never-ending mission. A 5-year mission would have been nice, but looks like we're just going to keep that going probably forever. In any case, it was a windy, cold, wet day, all those things. So, there are some factors that may go in. I guess what I'm trying to say here is go vote. I will be fair and admit I have not done it yet. We are knee-deep in interviews and scheduling of them here. Again, check your email if you haven't already, if you're one of our candidates out there. But in any case, yeah, just go vote. I want to ring that bell as much as possible because anyone announcing they're voting, if you want to announce it again, that's fine. But anyone announcing they have gone out and voted today, we will ring that bell. I know it's like a sticker prize, but it's best I got on the radio here. So speaking of elections and such, more candidate interviews coming up. Again, focusing on the county today, at least with our interviews. We'll certainly delve into other topics, but we do have two of the really remaining county government level. There's other candidates in the county, but when it comes to county commissioners court, got those two remaining interviews for those positions, including coming up this next segment, Sergio Coronado, Democratic nominee, not candidate, nominee for the Precinct number 4 County Commissioners Court, speaking with him and the pre-recorded interview. And a little bit later in the program, second hour, are planning and have confirmed to have on County Judge Ricardo Samaniego. So stay tuned for that as well. But all that and more to come. Here, you're, of course, tuned into Talk El Paso, airing live on News Radio 690 KTSM. Comments coming in over online. If you want to leave them over there, more than welcome to, including RJ over on the YouTube and others dropping those likes and reacts, including Eric McNabb, Robert Haynes, Glenn Stewart, Angel Rueda, Robbie Flores, James Holmes, Monica Cervantes, Flaco Jimenez, and more. Keep those going. We'll pop up the relevant comments as we can on screen, including some mentioning about weeds and maintenance and weeds of different kinds here. All that and more to come after this break. First of the hour and our extended interview coming up right next with Sergio Coronado. All that and a whole lot more after this break. News Radio 690 KTSM. So don't go anywhere.
Traffic all day. News Radio 690.
On the 54 Patriot southbound of the Pershing Drive on-ramp, an accident is reported. Police are responding to that. I-10 westbound at Reynolds, that earlier crash involving multiple vehicles off to the right, blocking the right shoulder. A little bit of a backup back to Airway. I-10 eastbound at Red, a disabled truck blocking the right shoulder. And a hit-and-run accident in McCombs northbound at Salem Drive. Try Sean Haggerty or Rushing Road instead. Kerry Edwards, El Paso traffic.
As you crunch the numbers trying to get the most out of your dollar, we'll throw in a $1,000 inflation bonus. Much better. Listen every hour from 9 a.m. through 5 p.m. weekdays for your chance to win $1,000.
Listen to win $1,000 every hour, weekdays from 9 a.m. through 5 p.m. It's the 1,000 inflation bonus on News Talk 690 a.m.
This report is sponsored by Audible. This fall, find everything you love listening to on Audible. From memoirs and true crime to celebrities and sci-fi, Audible is the home of storytelling. Audiobooks, podcasts, and originals. Sign up for a free 30-day trial at audible.com.
Hey, El Paso, Ivan Ochoa, General Manager of Sunland Park, Chrysler, Dodge, Jeep, Ram, Fiat. Right now, our inventory of new and certified pre-owned vehicles is better than ever. So our goal this month is to break our all-time sales record. We'll do whatever it takes to make a deal.
It's Ram Power Days at Sunland Park Chrysler, Dodge, Jeep, Ram, Fiat, and our savings and inventory are huge. Upside down in your current trade? We want it, even if you owe thousands more than it's worth, regardless of make or model. So you can drive home a new or certified pre-owned vehicle for less. For a limited time, get 2.9% APR on the all-new 2022 Ram, or get 0% APR on the all-new 2022 full-size Wagoneer SUV with third-row seating. Plus, we have great financing programs for good credit or less than perfect credit. All military personnel and first responders receive an additional discount. Thank you for your service. Sunland Park Chrysler, Dodge, Jeep, Ram, Fiat, where buying a car is fun at I-10 at Sunland Park Drive or online at sunlandparkdodge.com. Estamos en tu esquina, El Paso. El Paso Strong. Includes factory rebate and dealer discount plus T10L. 0 APR for 36 months is $27.78 per thousand finance on select vehicles with approved credit. Offers not combined.
Catch the show in the sky and help support the fight against cancer with the 4th annual Flight to Fight Cancer Research Awareness Fly-In on October 29th at the Doña Ana International Jetport, hosted by Francis Aviation and the War Eagles Air Museum, and powered by News Radio 690 KTSM and Sun 99.9. Kicking off at 10 a.m. with skydiving, airplane exhibitions, car shows, food, vendors, music, and much more. Tickets $10 at the door or on Eventbrite. Children 12 and under get in free. Follow the Flight to Fight on Facebook and Instagram at Cancer Flight. Recognized by the American Cancer Society and a Relay for Life team.
Finding great candidates to hire can be like, well, trying to find a needle in a haystack, but not with ZipRecruiter. Its powerful technology actively finds and invites qualified candidates to apply to your job. So while other companies might deliver a lot of hay, ZipRecruiter finds you the needle in the haystack.
See why 4 out of 5 employers who post a job on ZipRecruiter get a quality candidate within the first day. Try ZipRecruiter for free at ZipRecruiter.com/free. That's ZipRecruiter.com/free.
With an open channel,
I guess just try to keep channels open.
we welcome open-minded individuals
I try to keep an open mind to all issues.
with open arms
I think we need to always have our eyes open.
for open conversation. And when you open the iHeartRadio app, you open a whole new world. Wherever you are.
What should America do about immigration crisis?
I guess open the borders, but at the same time, check everyone that's coming in.
Open the gates.
A free download in the App Store or at ktsmradio.com. Getting a news feed on your phone while driving
makes driving more difficult. This is dangerous.
Getting a news feed without a computer or mobile device?
It would be impossible.
Unless, of course, you get your live news feeds at the top and bottom of the hour.
It's easy.
Traffic and weather all day.
It's as simple as that.
Trending stories tend to change.
Every minute of every day.
Twice an hour, we'll feed your curiosity.
Stay informed.
Shouldn't we listen?
They're hungry.
News Radio 690 KTSM. News Radio 690 KTSM El Paso.
Live from the KTSM AM 690 studios, it's Talk El Paso with Andrew J. Polk. To be a part of the show, follow on Facebook at facebook.com/Talk El Paso. Now here's your host, Andrew J. Polk.
Welcome back here to Talk El Paso, airing on News Radio 690 KTSM. I'm your host, Andrew J. Polk. Thank you for tuning in however you may be doing so, be it on air, online, live streaming through the free and reliable iHeartRadio app, or joining us over on our various social media pages we're up on these days. Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, and Twitch, either under Talk El Paso or Andrew J. Polk. Comments over there, keep those going. We will pop them up as relevant, particularly during this segment, as we're going to be joined now and continuing, of course, our election coverage. Joined now here in studio by Sergio Coronado, Democratic nominee for the El Paso County Commissioners Court, Precinct number 4. Thank you very much for joining us today.
Thank you, Andrew, and thank you to KTSM 690 Radio for inviting us to talk about these very important issues locally.
Absolutely, because, of course, the phrase is that all elections are local elections, and local races, of course, in these elections have a special significance and one of the best bang for your bucks in terms of impact of your vote and the policies. So getting into that, of course, we have spoken with you previously during the primary process, but for those who may have missed that or are unfamiliar with the race in general, please reintroduce yourself and talk a little bit about your background.
Sure. My name is Sergio Coronado, and I am running for the position of El Paso County Commissioner, Precinct 4. I won the primary and the runoff, and I'm now in the general election, and only 2 weeks and a few days away. I'm a local attorney. I've been sitting on the school board at Canutillo Independent School District for approximately 16 years, and I've been president for about probably 7 or 8 years of those years. We've done a lot of good out at Canutillo. We're the AAA rated, only one in district rated in this region here. And, I've been practicing attorney since 1985, worked with the Attorney General's Office, Prosecutor Assistance Division, then as Assistant County Attorney in Austin, then Assistant County Attorney here in El Paso, then went out into private practice with a local firm that is now Mount Screen Myers. They used to be Grambling and Mounts. And then after that, I've been out in private practice on my own for quite some time.
All right. And so for running for this position, then, of course, you mentioned your experience on the, again, Canutillo Independent School District's board for some years now. Why run for this position now?
Well, I think that we need good elected officials, people that are committed to serve, that have good qualifications and have their heart in the right place for the constituents of El Paso County. I have a track record of success over at Canutillo Independent School District, and I want to help the county constituents now, all the county. We've got a lot of issues that we have to deal with. We're doing a lot better, but there's always room for improvement and to do better in county government. And I aim that we, make sure that all the county offices and agencies are running efficiently, and that they have the resource to be able to provide the services that the community needs and requires.
Absolutely. So you have, of course, over on your website, SergioCoronado.com, a few different major planks of your platform here. The first one being good government. So in practice, then, besides, of course, a goal that I'm not sure anyone would oppose, how would that look like? What kind of policies would you be looking to put into place to achieve that, again, if elected to office?
Well, you know what? One of the things that people with respect to what they want in government, that they say is good government, is they want to make sure that there's transparency and honesty from their elected officials. And so, and the other thing is that we expect them to make sound decisions, smart decisions. And when we talk about that, people are always the first concern that people, when I'm out there walking the neighborhoods, is they're really concerned about taxes. And so the issue with respect to taxes is that, we possible rates, make sure that you shop around for the best solution to your needs. And so I think that that's really what we need to do and focus on in our county government when it talks about good government. We need to be transparent about what the county's doing and be honest with the people. When we're going to ask for certain certificates, either do certificates of obligation or bonds that are voted on by the public, we need to make sure we do those timely, that we do them and that the rollout is transparent. We involve all the community, engage them, make sure that they're on board for it so that we don't have any issues. The sooner we do, usually the sooner that you plan when there's needs, the better you're going to be off in making sure that you plan and you get the best rates and the best possible prices.
Related to what you just asked there or mentioned there, I want to ask further about, of course, one of the more recent ones, the UMC/El Paso County Hospital District, that certificate of obligation bond that was proposed. Now, if it goes onto the ballot, will be as a general obligation bond based on the petition that has gone forth there. In handling similar-ish situations like that, again, that may come up to county commissioners, but again, it looks like my understanding of the laws and the petitions involved with it will have to go onto the ballot, any kind of that effort, but similar efforts. So if similar kind of issues were to come up then kind of related to that idea of good governance, how would you want to handle that or see that achieved?
Well, just to give an example, I'm for the projects that the UMC is proposing. But just to let you know, if we had handled these last year and rolled them out and make sure that we engage the public, inform them well what it is and exactly what the tax increase is going to be for them, and we, part of those projects, I would have voted for certificates of obligation, and some of them I would have said let the people vote on those. And the reason I would have done that, and I would have, hopefully it would have been done last year, is because we could have gotten those bonds or certificates at around 2%. It is now 6%, around 6%, and it could go higher. We're talking 4% difference just in the matter of 1 year. And on $400 million, that's an extra $16 million extra in interest we're going to pay the first year. We could do a lot in this county if we made some decisions in terms of making sure that we do it as soon as possible, to make sure that we plan to be able to get the best rates out in the market, and as well as, the prices on materials and labor, that's going up. So it's not just the interest rates we're looking at now. Now we're talking about increased prices. So my position is we need to do it at the public. We need to be honest with them. My understanding of this particular project now that they want to do is going to cost us about $7 to $8 per month on an average household that's $151,000. Okay, when it probably could have been a lot less, and we could have saved a lot more money if we'd have done it last year. So my position is we need to be just honest with the public and the constituents of what those needs are, so that and tell them, look, this is the reason we're doing it, and that's why we need to do them urgently. And if we had done that, maybe we'd have gotten more buy-in.
Okay, and then of course, kind of relates to one of your other major platform positions, quality of life. In this one, you're of course addressing things such as infrastructure, of which again, hospital infrastructure could be a part of it, but specifically you address flooding issues, improving roads, and addressing existing water and sewer conditions. So again, the county is definitely, and practically, the unincorporated areas of the county and the parts and the more rural or less urbanized areas in general, very involved with this. I mean, the lower valley, the amount of flooding and issues that have been going on there has been pervasive, really, again, on the outskirts in either direction, north or south, east and west. But so when it comes to those, and again, quality of life, it sounds like you're primarily infrastructure focused. How would you want to really achieve that, again, if elected to office?
Well, let me tell you, the flooding issues, we really need to concentrate and make sure that we have a concentrated plan, concerted effort or plan from all the county governments that are in our El Paso County. Because the waters, when they come off the mountain, they don't care about jurisdictions and lines that are drawn, whether it's in the city or in the county. So we need to make sure we get together and make sure that we have a concerted effort and a concerted plan to make sure that we solve these flooding issues. We had this warning, this red flag, back in 2006 when we had this 100-year flood, and here we are, 16 years later. I just think it's time that we do something that the public requires that we do. We had somebody who died last year because of the floods on the west side. I don't want to see that happen again. I don't think anybody wants to see that happen again. Out in Canutillo, out in the northeast, in the lower valley, like you mentioned, pervasively we have issues with this flooding. I think it's time that we do this. We need to do a bond and ask the people to vote for it. Then so be it. But let's get going on it. This isn't a hard, complicated issue. It's going to require a lot of money, but we have the personnel in our engineering department, TxDOT, the Corps of Engineers. Let's just get together and let's get this done for this county. That's really my position with respect to roads. We do get some money from the state off the vehicles that are registered every year, but it doesn't seem to be enough. And everybody has complaints about their roads issues. And I just talked to some of the city constituents out in the Northeast, and they're saying, why don't the city get part of that money for the, that the county receives for roads and bridges? We're in the county too. So those are issues that we need to make sure that we get together with our county governments, including the cities and all the municipalities. And let's try to do something for the benefit of the entire people in this community. Maybe we can get together on some projects to handle some of these issues. I'm proposing that we maybe raise another $5 or so on the registration. We'd have to ask the legislature to make sure that they permit us to do this. If so, with another $5 a year on those vehicles that we can put a fee on, we might raise another $3.5 million. That would go a long way to start fixing these roads.
Again, if you're just joining us, guest right now is Sergio Coronado, Democratic nominee for the El Paso County Commissioners, Precinct number 4 seat. Again, you want to find out any more information about his positions and what we're talking about here, SergioCoronado.com. That's SergioCoronado.com. Last part of your platform I want to make sure we address here is, of course, safety. And talking about health standards and equipment and those kind of things. Of course, one of the major agencies that county commissioners have oversight for related to this would, of course, be the El Paso County Sheriff's Department. So when it comes comes to those kind of swirling concerns, again, what kind of policy would you be looking to put into place to address that, if elected to office?
Well, let me tell you, we are really fortunate to live here in El Paso County because we're one of the safest cities and counties in the entire country. And so, and thankful to our law enforcement and our officials that are on top of this. Can we do better? Obviously. One of the things that we're horrible at doing is dealing with mental health. And so I want to make sure that we put some resources in that make sure that we have preventative measures to be able to treat those people instead of them getting into the criminal justice system. Now, the Sheriff's Department just recently got a grant of about $2 million to deal with that for their crisis intervention team, where they have a clinician going out. That's a good start to do this. We're frankly asking a lot of our law enforcement officials when they respond to some of these calls that there's issues, people with mental health issues and other issues. And some of them, they don't have that proper training to do that. That's one of the things I want to make sure that, that our law enforcement has those, that proper training, that added training, and those resources to make sure they deal with that. We've seen countrywide what the issues have been with law enforcement. Thankfully here, we're not like that. And we're really proud of our law enforcement community here in El Paso. But I think we need to do better. And really, we need to do a lot better with respect to mental health issues.
Of course, related to that in its own right has been, of course, some national issues that have been and very much of concern to our audience have been hitting here at home: immigration, border security, those kind of things. Of course, local governments having to, of course, the city and the county of El Paso having to mount their own response at their own level. Of course, statements having been made by the county judge about preparedness previously, and now, of course, the response is particularly the county looking at setting up as a processing facility that'll cost about that $6-7 million that has been discussed. Again, it's distinct. Want to make distinctive from the city efforts that have been largely on transportation, but facilities in their own right. So again, from the county perspective, then in dealing with this, given the fact that we are looking at, as we're setting up facilities, as we are, continuing to deal with the lack of federal resources and the reimbursements that are, again, under discussion here, if elected and put into this position to deal with these issues, what are some of the things that you feel need to be done or you would take action on?
Well, let me tell you, the issue with the migrants, that's a federal government responsibility, okay? And we need to make sure that they reimburse us for those funds, because that should be spread out throughout the country from those funds, because it is a federal responsibility. But at the same time, we are humanitarian. We have a humanitarian and a moral duty to make sure that these individuals, if they're applying under our laws and doing it legally, and then by God, we need to step up to our ideals of our laws and our ideals in our country and our Constitution. These people, for the most part, they're leaving their country because of either violence or they're being persecuted politically. It's like our neighbor coming to us for help. And so if we want to make sure, a lot of these individuals are going to end up here, eventually be legally here. So we want to make sure we put our best foot forward and tell them what kind of people we are. We want to accept them. We want to make sure that they have a good viewpoint of the way we treat them, because that's the easier way that we're going to make sure that they are assimilated into our culture and into our government. And we need to be just good persons, I don't get the issue about that. Do we need to make sure that the federal government steps up and reimburses for their funds? Absolutely. All these people want to do is come work for us and make a better life for themselves legally. And to that extent, under our laws, we need to step up and do the right thing. I'd really like to make sure that the federal government, though, steps in and helps us with these centers from the get-go, rather than later on asking for reimbursement. I know that they're planning to send $6 million to the county here pretty soon, and that amount of money will help run this center for the first year. So. To that extent, I like that they're trying to get the money as quickly as possible. We just need to do a better job at that and make sure that as a county commissioner, I would make sure that we get that money back as much as possible.
Speaking about jobs then briefly here, of course, one of the major concerns that came up essentially since the last election involving county commissioners has been pandemic restrictions, restrictions on businesses, those kind of things. So kind of a two-part question for you here. If similar circumstances were to come up in discussions on how would you consider any kind of similar restrictions on either operation or those kind of things, and even outside outside of that, what needs to continue to be done to encourage economic development and recovery in our region coming out of those, again, existing pandemic restrictions?
Yeah, we've learned a lot from the pandemic. We've learned a lot that we weren't very prepared for this. We didn't really know. We didn't have a lot of knowledge about this particular virus. It is, it's just something that was unprecedented worldwide. We've learned a lot. I think we're at the point that we may have to be dealing with this every year, kind of like getting a flu shot every year. And who knows what the next pandemic's going to bring, whether it's going to be something that's, either more highly transmittable or not. So we just need to be aware of those things. I think we have a better understanding of the safety issues that we need to deal with. If something similar like that comes up, I agree with our county judge who acted on behalf of the health and safety of the community. Hindsight is 2020. Is being a armchair quarterback when you don't know a lot about the young. I'm okay with what the decisions were made to protect the health and safety of the people. What some people don't talk about is they say, well, it did hurt the economy here and locally. But we also need to talk about. We don't really know, but how many people were saved because those restrictions were put into place?
Mm-hmm.
We talk about the deaths and what happened to us and those people that got really sick. But we also need to talk about, probably how many people's lives were saved because of these restrictions. That's something that people really don't talk about. We do need to talk about those things. And, and this just happened this year at the courthouse. We had an attorney that was doing a murder case in one of the district courts. And, he was an older attorney and had some issues. During the middle of the trial, he caught COVID, the judge caught COVID, a witness caught COVID, one of the jurors got COVID. This attorney had to be hospitalized and he was in there for weeks and he had to go out in rehabilitation. So we need to be mindful of what this thing can do. And, while I feel for, the economy of our local economy, we just need to make sure that the safety and well-being of our community members is paramount. We can always get money back.
Again, guest right now has been Sergio Coronado, Democratic nominee for the El Paso County Commission Court, Precinct number 4. Again, any information about him, policies, what we've been talking about here, and of course the upcoming election, SergioCoronado.com. Visit that and also find it similarly over on social media. So thank you very much for taking the time to come and speak with us today about your policies, positions, and some of the major issues affecting our region, at least in part here today.
Thank you very much, Andrew. Thank you to your listeners out there, and make sure that everybody goes out to vote. Early voting starts next Monday, October 24th. It'll run through for 2 weeks. And then, of course, the election is November 8th. Everybody, please get out to vote. It's good for El Paso. Gives us a lot more clout, not just in the state, but in the country. So everybody, please get out to vote.
Absolutely here. So we got to take that next break now. So coming out of this break, we're going to be talking, of course, more about the local situations, the local issues, and of course, the local politics. So stay tuned. More Talk El Paso after this break here on News Radio 690 KTSM.
El Paso's News Radio 690 KTSM.
I'm Selena Madrid with your CBS 4 News Update. Yet another school shooting is making headlines across the country. This heartbreaking attack yesterday in St. Louis left 2 people dead and 7 others injured. The suspected gunman was also killed. Police say they are still trying to determine a motive for why the gunman, who they identified as 19-year-old recent graduate Orlando Harris, went to Central Visual and Performing Arts High School and opened fire. Investigators say they're looking into whether mental health played a role as well. Authorities say police exchanged fire with Harris. He later died at the hospital. Some students who were forced to run from the school wonder how they'll ever return. Now, the school will be closed today while this investigation continues on. The St. Louis school shooting was the 40th this year, resulting in injuries or death, according to a tally by Education Week. The incident occurred on the same day a teenager pleaded guilty to terrorism and first-degree murder in the Michigan school shooting that killed 4 students almost 1 year ago.
News Radio 690. Traffic all day.
An earlier accident on the I-10 westbound at Reynolds has got multiple vehicles up on the right shoulder. All lanes are open, but there's still a backup to before Airway. I-10 eastbound at Executive Center Boulevard, a stalled vehicle, single vehicle up on the right shoulder by the exit ramp. Joe Battle southbound after Vista del Sol, an injury accident. And a crash with injuries, Fairbanks westbound at Rushing Road. Kerry Edwards, El Paso traffic.
From the CBS Forewarned Weather Center, I'm meteorologist Brad Montgomery. Not bad for this afternoon. Clear skies, lots of sun. We'll see high around 68 degrees with the light winds. It'll feel even warmer. Lows tonight on the cold side once again, down into the 30s and 40s. So layer up for your Wednesday morning. Even milder for tomorrow with breezy conditions. We'll see a high around 74 degrees on Wednesday. From the CBS Forewarned Weather Center, I'm meteorologist Brad Montgomery.
This report is paid for by the Texans for Greg Abbott.
Political ad paid for by Texans for Greg Abbott.
Beto O'Rourke stands with radical groups who want to defund the police. Governor Abbott stands with law enforcement so they can keep Texas families safe. Greg Abbott, Governor.
At Affordable Dentures and Implants, that moment when we see a patient smile is everything to us. And we're proud to have helped millions of patients improve their smiles through affordable tooth replacement options. So whether it's a single tooth, full dentures, or dental implants, Affordable Dentures and Implants is here to help you. Go ahead and smile. Our new El Paso office, led by Dr. Kiso Uradiegu, is now open at 11917 Gatewood Boulevard West in Las Palmas Marketplace near Kohl's. To schedule a free new patient consultation, call 1-800-DENTURE or visit affordabledentures.com. That's 1-800-DENTURE or visit affordabledentures.com. Again, our new El Paso office is now open at 11917 Gatewood Boulevard West in Las Palmas Marketplace near Kohl's. Affordable Dentures and Implants. Go ahead and smile.
Go ahead and smile.
Tune in to the El Paso History Radio Show this Saturday, 10 to noon, here on 690 AM with your host, Andrew J. Polk, brought to you in part by Pepe's New Mexican Restaurant and Cantina, 6761 Donovan Drive. That's the El Paso History Radio Show, 10 a.m. Saturday, right here on News Radio 690 KTSM.
This fall, find everything you love listening to on Audible. From memoirs and true crime to celebrities and sci-fi, Audible is the home of storytelling, audiobooks, podcasts, and originals. Sign up for a free 30-day trial at audible.com. This report is sponsored by Audible.
There won't be much substance on your news feed until you add us. Just like us or click on the link at KTSMradio.com. El Paso's News Radio 690 KTSM.
Live from the KTSM AM 690 studios, it's Talk El Paso with Andrew J. Polk. To be a part of the show, call 915-544-KTSM or follow on Facebook at facebook.com/Talk El Paso. Now here's your host, Andrew J. Polk.
Thank you all so very much for joining us here for Talk El Paso, airing live on News Radio 690 KTSM. I am your host, Andrew J. Polk. Thank you for tuning in however you may be doing so, be it on air, online, live streaming through the free and reliable iHeartRadio app, or join us over on the various social media pages we're up on these days, facebook.com/Talk El Paso, the Talk El Paso channel over on YouTube, Twitter at Talk El Paso, or twitch.tv, Andrew J. Polk. Comments coming in over there. Do appear to have an issue with putting up the comments like we normally would on screen, but still collecting them, still addressing some of the more major topics. It's not going to be quite as snappy as we usually are, but don't worry, still take that as part of the conversation, because I mean, I would just feel empty inside if we couldn't have the comments that way, because they give me life as in all the formats they come in. To that point, we'll also go ahead and open up those phone lines now. And if we do kind of have to take that next break pretty quick, went a little bit long and a little bit technical details, but anyway, we're back on and continuing on with it. So again, thanks to our guest from this hour, Sergio Coronado, Democratic nominee for the, again, Precinct 4 County Commissioner's seat. If you want to see the previous interview we also had with said candidates for that race, can of course find us over on the, again, social media channels. I would say the YouTube's probably best for that, youtube.com/Talk El Paso, in order to, well, find all the full archive, and particularly when we mentioned the guests there, again, the candidate, or I keep saying candidates for the primary nominees are what we're dealing with now, and the nominee from the Republican side of things, of course, Blanca Trout. And particularly in races like this, I mean, I know it's not an easy, usable, one-on-one and line-by-line form here. There are plenty of other outlets in town that are also doing that, including, again, pretty much every other outlet with El Paso in the name. El Paso Inc., El Paso Times, El Paso Matters, all have voter guides. Some of them have been posted up. Would certainly encourage y'all to take a look at that if you want to get yourself ready to go to the polls, which again are open now. And again, a little bit off pace of at least the previous midterms, the 28 midterms as of now. I would call it about half, a little bit more than half of the same, but it was a cold, windy, wet day yesterday. So we'll see how it all moves forward. So do, of course, want to give credit where it's due. Ed Clore letting us know that I'll take the typo and diminutive as on purpose here, saying he voted, which I mean that means he went to the polls here. So get, of course, promise the bell for that here. Some of the other comments, at least one more that I want to address before we hit that next break here. We're going to comment to what we were talking about earlier in the program, saying attempted to read the revised city manager contract, skeptical regarding the basis of salary determination, making the salary comparable to other cities such as Phoenix and other large cities in Texas. El Paso is not Phoenix or Houston. We don't have the same tax base. $450,000 is still a huge salary for a non-elected official. Do we require a city manager and a mayor? Honestly, that question is, I think, coming up more than a little bit in terms of, well, I've been seeing it on certain actual candidate questionnaires, among other things, for when it comes to this next potential city council. So honestly, I think that question might actually be looking at, again, this next term of office might come up more as it already has been. But so we're going ahead and take that next break. Now, coming out of this break, again, phone lines open. If you want to get on the line, that number to do so is 915-544-5876, 915-544-KTSM. Back after this break with more Talk El Paso here on News Radio 690 KTSM. Stay tuned.
Traffic all day. News Radio 690.
An earlier accident on the I-10 westbound at Reynolds has got multiple vehicles up on the right shoulder. All lanes are open, but there's still a backup to before Airway. I-10 eastbound at Executive Center Boulevard, a stalled vehicle, single vehicle up on the right shoulder by the exit ramp. Joe Battle southbound after Vista del Sol, an injury accident. And a crash with injuries, Fairbanks westbound at Rushing Road. Kerry Edwards, El Paso traffic.
This report is paid for by the Texans for Greg Abbott.
Political ad paid for by Texans for Greg Abbott.
Beto O'Rourke stands with radical groups who want to defund the police. Governor Abbott stands with law enforcement so they can keep Texas families safe. Greg Abbott, governor.
You wash your hands, you brush your teeth, but what about the nose? How do you clean your nose? With Navage. Navage uses powered suction to pull saline in one nostril, around the back of the nose, and out the other nostril, flushing out allergens, mucus, and germs. And it's why cleaning your nose, the body's air filter, is the next evolution in daily personal hygiene. People try Navage for lots of reasons. Sinusitis, colds, allergies, snoring, things that make it hard to breathe through your nose. But over time, they find that cleaning their nose makes them feel better, a lot better. Over 3 million Navage users have written more than 100,000 reviews, averaging 4.7 stars, saying, best product I've ever used, and amazing, I love my Navage. Navage helps you breathe better, sleep deeper, and snore less, but the biggest payoff is improved health. Navage is good personal hygiene and can help you stay healthier. At Walmart, Walgreens, CVS, Rite Aid, Target, and online. Navage, N-A-V-A-G-E, clean nose, healthy life.
On a busy construction site, things can be misinterpreted. Bring in the bulldozer can sound a lot like,
building looks mediocre.
Designs need a do-over.
or even,
Install a roller coaster? Okay.
be on the same page at every stage with Autodesk. From the designers to the field crew to the owner of the finished building, Autodesk Construction Cloud gives everyone clarity. Now, can we actually bring in the bulldozer?
Hey, Mario Courtney Lopez here. We know how important it is to be confident in all of life's close-up moments.
And bad breath can rob you of your confidence.
Yeah, it can. Whenever I'm rubbing elbows with celebrities or friends or just chilling at home, I got to make sure I have the confidence that comes with Smart Mouth mouthwash.
Smart Mouth is clinically proven to eliminate and prevent bad breath for 24 hours with just 2 rinses a day.
Get to your favorite retailer right now for that kind of better together confidence.
Find Smart Mouth at your favorite retailer or at smartmouth.com/radio.
Talk El Paso, bringing you the biggest stories from the borderland and beyond, 4 to 6 p.m. every weekday, brought to you in part by Sergio Lewis Body Shop. Call the pros at 915-593-0191. That's Talk El Paso, Monday through Friday at 4, right here on News Radio 690 KTSM.
This fall, find everything you love listening to on Audible. From memoirs and true crime to celebrities and sci-fi, Audible is the home of storytelling, audiobooks, podcasts, and originals. Sign up for a free 30-day trial at audible.com.
News Radio 690 KTSM.
Live from the KTSM AM 690 studios, it's Talk El Paso with Andrew J. Polk. To be a part of the show, call 915-544-KTSM or follow on Facebook at facebook.com/Talk El Paso. Now here's your host, Andrew J. Polk.
Thank you all so very much for joining us here for Talk El Paso, airing live on News Radio 690 KTSM. I'm your host, Andrew J. Polk. Thank you for tuning in, however you may be doing so. A lot of ways to interact with the show. Again, we do have the comments going over on social media. There are little technical trickery in order to get it actually popped up on screen for you, not functioning at the moment, but don't worry, we'll still talk about them here. Just won't be, again, quite as nifty as it usually is, but we want to make a point, particularly, about the things we're discussing, the debates, and the issues amongst them. Feel free to do so. Also, that phone line open, 915-544-5876, 915-544-KTSM. Go down those liking and reacting so far to the show here. Do have Michael Robert Tipton, Flaco Jimenez, Amber Banda, James Holmes, Ion Graham, Robert Haynes, Glenn Stewart. Glenn? Yeah, Glenn. Sorry, smudge on the screen. Angel Rueda, Robbie Flores, Monica Cervantes, and Ida Beza Gardner. And, of course, we'll get back to those phone lines and such things. One more comment I wanted to bring up, I believe it was from John here, a comment on the roads, saying specifically that county and city road repair crews need to be sent to Germany where they can learn proper repair techniques. When a German road repair is made, you can't tell where it was made. Oklahoma definitely has the worst repair techniques of any state in the lower Midwest. I guess I haven't done like a statistical analysis between different road repair techniques, but I will agree that Germany does have, to my understanding, having never visited, some of the best roads in the world, but they also pay out the wazoo for them. The figure I have is from more than a decade ago, but even at that point in time, to get and renew a driver's license was something on the order of not quite $10,000 equivalent anyway, but I'm going to be, given that the length of time ago I heard that, I have to look it up now, but yeah, they'd have very, very different philosophies when it comes to roads. I mean, I've heard as what would heaven be? Heaven would be where the roads are run by the Germans, the food is done by the French, and things like that. And then hell would be the opposite, where the roads are run by the Italians and the food is by the Germans. Anyway, there's the joke there I'll need to look up as well. Any case, already due for that next break and the top of the hour now. Again, coming out next hour, going to be having on, scheduled to have on County Judge Ricardo Samaniego. So kind of one of those split shows, but we're cramming in as much as we can. It's election season, y'all. So we'll keep delving into those issues, at least talking about some of those issues in any case. So, of course, taking more calls on the line in this segment, but stay tuned. More Talk El Paso after this break. Again, phone line full up, but if you want to squeeze on, that number to do so is 915-544-5876, 915-544-KTSM. Back after this break with more Talk El Paso here on News Radio 690 KTSM. Stay tuned.
Traffic all day. News Radio 690.
Possible slowdown on Gateway East at Geronimo. Police are responding to an accident at Geronimo Drive eastbound on Gateway. Earlier crash on I-10 westbound at Reynolds has been cleared off to the right. Still some slowing back to Airway Boulevard. On the 54 Patriot northbound at Cassidy, a stalled vehicle's blocking the left shoulder. And an injury accident northbound Lee Trevino north of the 10 Gateway at James Watt Drive. Carrie Edwards, El Paso traffic.
Let's face it, credit cards are pretty much a necessity.
New tires for the car? Here's my card.
I order takeout. Here's my card. And most of us just accept the high interest rates credit cards charge as a necessary evil.
What are you going to do?
Get a low fixed-rate credit card consolidation loan from Lightstream from $5,000 to $100,000 and pay off those credit card balances. Apply online, and you could get your money as soon as the day you apply. The average credit card company charges over 19% APR. But with Lightstream, you can get a fixed rate as low as 6.99% APR with autopay and excellent credit.
Now I can pay off my high-interest credit cards and save money with a much lower rate.
Apply today at lightstream.com/radio and get an additional interest rate discount. That's lightstream.com/radio. Lightstream.com/radio.
Subject to credit approval. Rates range from 6.99% APR to
News on the hour
21.49% APR.
and a half.
0.5%
Traffic and weather all day. News Radio 690 is KTSM AM El Paso, an iHeart radio station.
NBC News Radio, I'm Brian Shook. The White House says peace negotiations between Russia and Ukraine are being left up to the two countries.
That is up to Ukraine. That is up to the president, President Zelensky.
Speaking to reporters, Press Secretary Karine Jean-Pierre said the White House's focus has been on supporting Ukraine in any way they can. These remarks come after some House Democrats withdrew a letter that asked President Biden to speak directly with Russia to end the war. No damage or injuries have been reported after a 5.1 earthquake hit near San Jose earlier today. The governor's Office of Emergency Services tweeted it's working with local officials and monitoring the situation. The USGS said the quake was followed by a 3.1 magnitude aftershock. The political world is focused on Pennsylvania tonight for the first and only debate in the race for the state's open U.S. Senate seat. Democratic Lieutenant Governor John Fetterman will square off against Republican Mehmet Oz in a race that has tightened in the polls and gotten much more personal. Authorities in St. Louis are releasing more details about a school shooting that left 3 people dead on Monday. Lisa Taylor reports.
The 19-year-old suspected gunman, who is a graduate of Central Visual and Performing Arts High School, had 600 rounds of ammunition on his person at the time of the shooting. Police Commissioner Michael Sachs said the situation could have been much worse. The alleged shooter was wounded by police who arrived at the school in just 4 minutes and later died at an area hospital. One 15-year-old student and a 61-year-old gym teacher were also killed. A handwritten note describing his motives for the shooting was also found in the gunman's car. I'm Lisa Taylor.
New details are being revealed following the sudden death of actor Leslie Jordan. TMZ reports he was experiencing health issues in the weeks leading up to his death and had scheduled an appointment with a cardiologist. You're listening to the latest from NBC News Radio. Deaths from heart attacks increased dramatically during the surges of the COVID pandemic. Phil Hewlett reports.
According to data from the Schmidt Heart Institute at Cedars-Sinai Hospital in Los Angeles, the new numbers reverse a healthier pre-pandemic trend. In the year before the pandemic, there were less than 144,000 heart attack deaths nationwide. Within the first year of the pandemic, that number increased by 14% to more than 164,000. The spike was most significant among individuals between the ages of 25 and 44. Deaths in that age group increased by nearly 30%.
Tennis superstar Serena Williams says she's not retired. Williams previously indicated she would walk away from the game after the U.S. Open. She said the chances of a return to tennis are very high and cited having a court at her house. 2 mayors of major cities in New York and New Jersey are talking about creating more equitable communities. Natalie Migliori has the details.
New York City Mayor Eric Adams and Newark Mayor Ras Baraka have their work cut out for that. They hosted a fireside chat to discuss how their administrations are tackling existing challenges that were exacerbated by the COVID-19 pandemic.
I mean, these problems are big. Yeah. We do what we can, but we need partners, we need help, and we need commitment and investment in these communities, and we need it on all levels.
Housing, healthcare, and creating jobs are part of that investment. As 2 mayors of color, the men agree their fight against racism is a fight to protect democracy. I'm Natalie Migliori.
A San Antonio subdivision has street names based on Game of Thrones. Texas developer Chesmar Homes opened the Archer Oaks community in 2020 inside Loop 1604 West near Houseman. The neighborhood features several streets that will be familiar to Game of Thrones fans. They include Westeros Path, Winterfell, Aria Way, and Needle Creek. Brian Shook, NBC News Radio.
Now your chance to win $1,000. Just enter this nationwide keyword on our website. Grand. That's grand. Enter it now.
This report is paid for by the Texans for Greg Abbott.
Political ad paid for by Texans for Greg Abbott.
Beto O'Rourke stands with radical groups who want to defund the police. Governor Abbott stands with law enforcement so they can keep Texas families safe. Greg Abbott, Governor.
Help the planet with a tip from iHeartRadio Earth.
Water heating can account for up to 25% of the energy consumed in your home. Save money and energy and improve the comfort of your home by turning down the temperature of your water heater from 140 to 120 degrees Fahrenheit. It can save you up to 22% on your energy bill annually. Brought to you by iHeartRadio Earth and the National Environmental Education Foundation. To find more tips for smarter, sustainable living or to take action in your own community, go to iHeartRadio.com/Earth.
Tired of the news about how everything is costing more?
Everything is stubbornly high.
Us too. That's why we made the iHeartRadio app absolutely free. When you download the free iHeartRadio app, you have the radio stations you love at your fingertips whenever you want, wherever you want, along with millions of podcasts from the news you crave to the true crime series you can't resist. Playlists to fit any mood or activity. And here's the part you don't want to miss. It's all free. Download the free iHeartRadio app and discover music, radio, and podcasts you'll love.
Me, a cat, moving in with a new human. It took a little getting used to. She has these weird games she likes to play, like this giant feather. She sticks it in my face. I swat it away. She sticks it in my face. I swat it away. It's almost like she thinks I enjoy it. But seeing how much fun she gets out of it, well, I guess it makes it all worth it. Humans.
A person is the best thing to happen to a shelter pet. Be that person. Adopt. Brought to you by the Ad Council and the ShelterPetProject.org.
News Radio 690 KTSM El Paso.
Live from the KTSM AM 690 studios, it's Talk El Paso with Andrew J. Polk. To be a part of the show, call 915-544-KTSM or follow on Facebook at facebook.com/Talk El Paso. Now here's your host, Andrew J. Polk.
Thank you all so very much for joining us for Talk El Paso, airing live on News Radio 690 KTSM. I'm your host, Andrew J. Polk. Thank you for tuning in however you may be doing so, be it on air, online, live, streaming through the free and reliable iHeartRadio app, or joining us over on the various social media pages, facebook.com/Talk El Paso, the Talk El Paso channel over on YouTube, Twitter at Talk El Paso, or twitch.tv, Andrew J. Polk. A lot of different ways to communicate with the show, of course, on those pages. Comments not popping up quite as they normally would, but we still got them coming by, and we'll read some of them on air anyway, if we can't get them on screen. Seems to be working for the YouTube, though, as RJ saying shot from last time was saying the Autobahn sounds cool, but not that cool. Again, priorities. If you got a supercar there, John Browselton kind of going along with that as well, saying the left lane is for passing only in Germany. You see 4 or 5 expensive cars driving on each other's bumper, and no one will get in the right lane. Accidents are spectacular when they happen. That's another reason that German cars have incredible safety records, because once you start regularly hitting triple-digit speeds, I don't care if you're in kilometers or miles or whatever, you better have some sturdy crash impact testing. Otherwise, you're going to have things that you wouldn't want to being smeared along the road here. Okay, and I also looked it up, slightly incorrect on my numbers here. Still incredibly high on the actual cost here, about 2,000 euros to 3,200 euros, at least according to Insider and others. I mean, there's some processing fees, but expensive among other things, and the cost actually for the roads. If you think El Paso's roadway budget is, and that bond project is a lot, imagine that being for like one stretch of road alone. Anyway, interesting points being made there, but also those phone lines. Let's just go ahead and dive into those and squeeze in what we can, because again, later this segment we have on standby El Paso County Judge Ricardo Samaniego, so we'll be speaking with him in the next segment. So let's get to those phone calls here. We do have Barbara on the west side with us right now. Barbara, thanks for joining us.
Hi, Andrew. Thank you for taking my call.
Mm-hmm.
I wanted to comment on an article that came out on the El Paso Times either Sunday or Monday regarding the Biden's policy on the Venezuelans. My takeaway was that his policies are reactive, chaotic, illogical, and traumatizing to illegal immigrants. The article started with a lady who said that she saw 3 U.S. border states before being expelled to Mexico. Then they interviewed a husband and wife, and they were separated. And she said she doesn't know, but her husband went to Chicago, and after 3.5 days of her wandering in buses, she found herself in Sonora, Mexico. And she described that as psychological trauma. Then they interviewed a husband and wife, and she doesn't know where he's at. They were separated, but she found herself in Mexico. And then finally they interviewed a husband and wife. They were not separated, but they found themselves 8 hours south of El Paso and Piedras Negras after they were told that they were being processed in a different location. Sounds to me like lawsuits, right? That's all we do is get sued by these illegal immigrants. And these are family separations that we constantly get lectured on from our local leaders in Escobar. we need to treat them humanely and and we need to be dignified. Well, how is it traumatizing these people? That's the way they describe humane or dignified. And in the article, it states that the Border Patrol spokesperson said that they're using these lateral transfers to reduce overcrowding in our facilities and from overwhelming Juarez. Well, if this is supposed to discourage other Venezuelans from coming, I don't believe it's going to work. And the reason it's not going to work is because it's reported that there are Venezuelans who are refusing to leave Mexico, and have set up tents in Juarez, hoping that President will have an about face. So, and that's not an unrealistic expectation if we've seen what he's done before with the Haitians, or what he's done with a wall in Yuma, quietly building it. What I believe is a bigger message is that this administration has no clue how to fix their self-inflicted lethal wounds that affects all of us. I think it's nothing more than an act of desperation to keep illegal immigrants coming into our community without declaring a state of emergency. So if you haven't voted, go vote. Vote for Irene Armendariz-Jackson. She'll be on the right side of history. And regarding your interview with Coronado, he doesn't seem to understand there's a difference between our neighbor coming for help and people from 149 different countries who we don't even know their background or anything coming to our borders. We want legal immigration. We want people who are actually coming to assimilate and become a part of the fabric of our country. These illegal immigrants, if that's what they wanted, they would come in legally. Their plan is to live in the shadows as long as they can. And that's their idea of a better America for them. And lastly, Andrew, I want to talk to the vandals in El Paso.
Okay.
We put up signs for candidates. Those signs are paid for through the candidate's campaign or private citizens. And then they go around and they destroy or remove the signs. And I have a perfect example. We placed a sign across the street from St. Matthew's. It was a pro-life sign. It was there for going on 4 weeks. And all of a sudden on a Monday morning, it was gone. So I called the church. I spoke with the church and asked them if they had removed the sign we placed there. And they said no. And I only did that because I wanted to do due diligence, because the sign next to the one I placed there was an individual who was a Democrat. That sign remained, but the pro-life sign didn't. So vandals, please, if you believe your candidate is going to win, you don't need to go around destroying or removing signs. Let them win on the merits. You send a big signal when you take our signs off and leave a Democratic sign there. So I'm hoping that you will have some sort of dignity and realize that you can't destroy or take other people's property that's been put up there. Too bad we didn't have cameras. Oh, I forgot to ask the church if they have cameras.
Oh, well, there you go.
Anyway, Andrew, I think it's reasonable to ask people to be respectful. What's your opinion?
I mean, yes, I'd agree that being respectful would be good here. Unfortunately, it's been kind of an open secret that, the signs being stolen has been going on for ever since. We're getting a little bit of feedback there, so I'm going to put you on hold here briefly. But, I mean, it's kind of an open secret that I'm not pointing fingers at anyone in particular, but it's kind of across the spectrum that signs get stolen. Now, whether or not it is that someone is specifically targeting a candidate or just something that they don't like to see, or heck, taking it to mend offense, I don't know. Point is that it happens. I've actually done some reporting on it in the past, particularly back in my time on TV, when there were some of those rare occasions when we had it caught on camera. I think it was from a daycare out Montana way, if I remember correctly, where I saw that previously. So, unfortunately, it's a thing that happens. But I would say that anyone doing that, like, what do you think will be happening from it? Like, what do you think that will achieve? Just trying to remove from the conversation, because you're not actually like defeating their points, defeating the issues. All you're dealing with is the other uninformed people, and frankly, it just starts an arms race where then for you're particularly considering that like campaign success might come from who is able to put up and or steal the most signs. Like, it's just it's bad, it's distasteful, and I don't like it. So I do think that there are technically some state penalties that come from that, though. Taking a quick look at the actual state laws on this, it's mostly from where you can't put them, such as in state right-of-ways, among other things. But, yeah, I do believe that it is a Class C misdemeanor if I'm looking at the rest of the kind of penalties that come from there. In any case, yeah, bad thing there. So, and definitely agree with you. Go out to vote. Make sure to vote early and vote often. Will probably apply here. Not that I'm saying you should vote twice in one election, but vote now, and then there will probably be some runoffs in our area. Anyway, let's get to at least a couple more phone calls before we hit that next break. Again, after that break, going to be having on County Judge Ricardo Samaniego. Do we have Andrew on the west side with us right now? Andrew, thanks for joining us.
Yes, thank you very much, Andrew. A couple of points, actually three. Found Sergio Coronado's interview very interesting. He is a great person, great attorney, I would say. But Andrew, the only thing is that I found his conversation concerning these illegal immigrants rather like the welcome wagon.
Okay.
Yes, my question to these individuals is, why can't they work with the Biden administration or petition the Biden administration, whether through letters or resolutions, to help curb this illegal immigration and the problems that we're having here on the border?
Whether or not that's actually happened or not, I'm not qualified to comment on, because that's going to get into some more of those backroom kind of things. But I was checking, and as I've been doing daily these days, on what the actual migrant situational awareness dashboard by the city of El Paso is anyway. And it looks like that there's been a marked decrease, particularly in things like the CBP custody rolling 7-day average and the community releases by calendar week, marked decrease ever since there was that change in federal policy of the essential promise to enforce Title 42 in regards to those of Venezuelan origin. Now, that being a policy and effectively a departmental change, whether or not that'll maintain or could that be changed back. I mean, there's a lot of other issues. I would still be much more in favor of there actually being like legal laws, bills passed, reforms kind of thing here. So I'm not quite sure that addresses your concern about the actual like community involvement in petitioning for essentially those kind of things, but it's arguable that there has been a change to that extent.
Yes, agreed. But you'll probably see an increase right after the midterms come to a conclusion. Next thing I was going to say, earlier you talked about weeds in the El Paso area.
Yep, and City Council needing to do more research on figuring out the multifaceted, apparently, solution. I mean, some of the things that were discussed at the very least during the recent City Council meeting, again, according to our news partners over at KFOX 14, was the potential for suspending some fines for essentially those retirement age senior citizens and those that have disabilities, and maybe looking at outside firms being hired to facilitate the further cleanup. But essentially, it was referred to as too many moving parts. So they've instructed the city manager and the city manager side of government to do some research and get back to them essentially on what possible solutions would be.
Right. Well, I had a friend of mine. They essentially gave him the warning, and then they had to come back and clean up his yard. Even took his bicycle parts, these private companies, and then they attached the bill for cleanup to his monthly water bill.
Okay, interesting. I mean, I know that has been a thing. I mean, fines for weeds over, I believe, a foot tall is a possibility and something that can have been done. But I haven't actually heard of that happening to anyone. So again, I would my response, if this were to have happened to me, would be to go out and then send back the water bill with a picture of whatever closest median he can find that show the weeds overgrown and just say "dis you." And I think that's at least part of the conversation going on there.
Right. Yes. In regard to what Barbara was saying, not only concerning the signs, but a big thing around here, people not respecting signs, political advertising, but people are engaging in illegal dumping. In other words, going to throwing their trash in another business's or person's dumpster.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, that happens too. I'm not surprised.
Yeah, well, warning to people out there, hey, at the very least, guys, it's theft of service. Depending on how much you're throwing, it's illegal dumping. And at the very least, it's criminal trespass. Same thing with signs. Depends on the monetary amount of the signs. And then if you go on somebody's property and it's posted, hey, then you could face jail time for criminal trespass.
I mean, I knew that there were penalties there, I think, even just from, state law on campaign signs, but I'm not surprised that those other things could apply as well. Makes sense.
Yeah, well, it's like and I've warned people, around my property, telling them, they need to stay off the grass. And I finally had to tell one guy who was arguing with me. I said, we'll just let the police handle it. And so I haven't seen that person since. But anyway, I'll turn the mic back over to you, and you have a good evening.
No, you too as well. Appreciate the point in the call. You have a good one there as well. I mean, yeah, anyone entitled to someone else's property saying, no, you can't tell me what to do on your property. Like, come on. Like, where figure out your priorities, because, I mean, it's just ridiculous. It's plain and simple. Anyway, we got to take that next break now. So coming out of this break, we again having on deck here ready for us El Paso County Judge Ricardo Samaniego, going to be speaking with us live here in studio. So if you're on the line, we'll get to you after this next segment. And again, if you want to get your comments there, Calvin Williams saying, I don't look happy today, of those looking over on social media. Again, when the comments are affected, I can still read some of them here, and some interesting points being made there. Otherwise, a lot of discussion going on. I don't know. The comments give me life. I mean that very sincerely, and not just as a please go and comment on there. So the fact that we can't put them up on screen, maybe I'm a little put out today, but we'll of course continue the show apace. So stay tuned. More Talk El Paso after this break. Here's News Radio 690 KTSM. Stay tuned.
Traffic all day. News Radio 690.
I-10 westbound slowing down. Hawkins to Paisano from an earlier crash with a 5-minute delay. I-10 eastbound Trans Mountain to the 54 Patriots, a 7-minute delay. On the spur eastbound between the 54 Gateway and the Loop, it's a 6-minute delay. Police are responding to a crash Gateway East at Geronimo and an injury accident in the Lower Valley, northbound Zaragoza at Americas Avenue with medical on the scene. Carrie Edwards, El Paso traffic.
As you crunch the numbers trying to get the most out of your dollar, we'll throw in a $1,000 inflation bonus. Much better. Listen every hour from 9 a.m. through 5 p.m. weekdays for your chance to win $1,000.
Listen to win $1,000 every hour, weekdays from 9 a.m. through 5 p.m. It's the 1,000 inflation bonus on News Talk 690 a.m.
This report is paid for by the Texans for Greg Abbott.
Political ad paid for by Texans for Greg Abbott.
Beto O'Rourke stands with radical groups who want to defund the police. Governor Abbott stands with law enforcement so they can keep Texas families safe. Greg Abbott, Governor.
Developed and used by cultures in forested areas, drums served as an early form of communication. Due to the highly ambiguous nature of these rhythms, misinterpretations often occur, resulting in violence. Thankfully, when we bang the drum now, we're a bit more civilized. Can you hear me now? A bit.
We have to hit them hard for this.
Beat out your frustrations on our drum.
Do not stop banging that drum.
News Radio 690 KTSM.
Hi, I'm Barbara Cueto, author of From Mafia Princess to God's Princess. That's my story of how God delivered me from a life of hopelessness to a life of victory. And I believe that He wants that for all of us. If you or someone you love need to experience a night of hope and restoration, please join me at Freedom in Christ Residential Center on Friday, October 28th at 6:30 p.m. for this ladies-only Warrior Princess Night. There will be testimonies, worship, door prizes, teaching, a tiara ceremony, and whatever else God has in store for His princesses. Ladies, let's just have fun. That's Friday, October 28th at 6:30 p.m. at 3331 Idalia. For more info on this free event, call 915-566-1197. That's 915-566-1197. See you there.
Most of the time, traffic is pretty good. But there are times when traffic can be pretty bad. No, I mean like really bad. Almost. But more like an asteroid's gonna hit the city and everyone's trying to get out of town at once and nobody's car is moving and people are running down the highway clutching their kids and whatever belongings they can grab. Yep, now you got it. It's times like these you need your severe traffic station.
Traffic and weather all day. Stay informed with El Paso's News Radio 690 KTSM.
Cashback is not available on gas in New Jersey and Wisconsin. John, what are you doing? Get in my car. Why are you walking to work?
Thanks, man. It's these insanely high gas prices. They are draining my bank account. I can't afford to drive anymore.
Dude, don't walk. Just do what I do, because I never pay full price for gas anymore. I use the free Upside app that pays you cash back for every gallon of gas you buy.
Wait, you're telling me you get paid cash when you buy gas with the Upside app?
Yes, I get real cash back every time I buy gas.
Does that actually add up to anything?
I'll make around $200.
Wow, that's serious extra cash. I'm downloading the free Upside app now.
Download the free Upside app now to earn real cash back every time you buy gas. Use promo code $1 for an extra 25 cents a gallon bonus on your first tank. That's promo code $1. You can cash out anytime right to your bank account, to PayPal, or an e-gift card for Amazon and other brands. Just download the free Upside app and use promo code $1 for a 25 cents a gallon bonus on your first tank. That's code $1.
Recently, we hit the streets and found out how informed people really are.
Yes, I'm on top of events.
Most news, yes. Except for these two.
I am not on top of events.
I'm not on top of my events, no.
They were clueless that every morning they can plug into the world with the news, weather, and traffic info that'll make their lives so much easier and more informed. Just like you and I do. Stay informed with El Paso's News Radio 690 KTSM. El Paso's News Radio 690 KTSM.
Live from the KTSM AM 690 studios, it's Talk El Paso with Andrew J. Polk. To be a part of the show, call 915-544-KTSM or follow on Facebook at facebook.com/Talk El Paso. Now here's your host, Andrew J. Polk.
Thank you all so very much for joining us here for Talk El Paso, airing live on News Radio 690 KTSM. I'm your host, Andrew J. Polk. Thank you for tuning in, however you may be doing so, be it on air, online, live streaming through the free and reliable iHeartRadio app, or joining us over on the various social media pages. We'll get to more of those phone calls here in just a bit, but as we mentioned, we are in election season, so we might be doubling up with some of those interviews as we are today. So we do have right now joining us here in studio, El Paso County Judge Ricardo Samaniego. Thank you very much for joining us here today.
Well, thank you for having me. Appreciate it.
Absolutely happy to have you on to talk about these things and some of the issues here. So, of course, we are talking about the chief elected official for El Paso County. Because it's come up recently, this is not a judicial position, but rather essentially equivalent to the executive for the county, right?
That's correct. That's correct. A CEO of the county / county judge.
Exactly. So there are a few things, of course, that you are running on re-election for this upcoming one. Some of the ones that you have listed over on your website, judgesamaniego.com, include economic stability. Now, of course, there have been a lot of questions that have come up with that, and that has been, the economy in general. But specifically, the effects we're feeling here have been put up as one of the major issues for this coming election. So for your platform, both on your record and what to hope to do for the next term of office, if elected, what are some of the major points that you are focusing on?
Well, first of all, Texas was actually one of all of Texas, El Paso was one of the strongest economies. A lot of people don't know that. We also had the highest sales revenue in the history of the county. And so we're positioned very well. And this is without Mexico, right? When we bring in Mexico, and the relationship that I have is I'm pretty focused a lot on binational. This is a great future for El Paso. I keep telling everybody that we have about maybe 4 to 5 year window of opportunity where the community can take advantage of. After that, then we've got California. We're going to have a lot of people coming in from all over. Just what happened in Austin is going to happen in El Paso. So I'm working really hard to make sure that we have opportunities. We have the impact money that we have, the funds, the federal funding that we're getting. So a lot of things are coming into El Paso, and obviously it takes a tremendous amount of information and background to be able to make this thing keep forward. The relationships that we have, we just got $40 million from the Build Back Better award that we got. This is the community challenge. Out of 529 applications throughout the country, there was only 21 that were chosen, and we were one of them. And where I'm really proud is that Texas had almost like 75 entries, and none of them got it other than El Paso. I've been working on this since 4 years. Actually, before I even started, I was a Democratic elect. I started working with UTEP and Dr. Shadari to look at this aerospace district. So
Mhm.
that's going to be a huge, huge impact that we're going to have. On top of that, UT gave $30 million to for us to have an advanced manufacturing site there at UTEP. It's going to be part of the decoration. You know how nice all the architect
Mhm.
that they have. So we're really well. You know, we're positioned extremely well. You know, I've been working with a lot of companies that want to come to El Paso. You've got companies like Amazon that is now trying to expand, and I had a great relationship with them. TJ Maxx expanding their warehouses. Schneider Electric is now
Mhm.
expanding. We've got Language Perfect that we have one of the world-renowned companies, and so
Mhm.
El Paso probably I can tell you, born and raised in El Paso, I cannot imagine any better opportunity than we have. People don't recall that the maquiladora came through here. We didn't get much from that. Most of the
Hmm.
vendors were from all over, so I'm trying to correct that. I've been working with Ford Bliss. I was at AUSA last week, Army USA, and we talked to all the generals and all the vendors, and only
Mhm.
30% of their supply at Fort Bliss are from El Paso, and we have this great relationship. But as I told the General Eisenhower is now the new commander there, and I said we love the galas, we love all these relationships that we have with each other,
Mhm.
but we really need to focus on expanding. For example, in San Antonio, it's 70% of the suppliers are
Hmm.
from San Antonio. So a lot of great things happening that for our community, and I think you need the consistency. The relationships I have with Borderplex, the relationship I have with UTEP, is going to be very important. We cannot afford not to continue that relationship going in the right direction.
Specifically then on the part of growth, I mean, talking about economic there a bit, but you also, it seemed like you referred a bit to just population growth overall, referring to, California and other parts of Texas. Of course, notably El Paso saw some, well, effectively one state seat kind of district out of the area because El Paso didn't not grow, common misconception, but it didn't grow anywhere near on the order of magnitude that the rest of the state, about half as much, about, 8 to 10% versus the 16 to 20% for most other reaches of the state. So are you expecting or anticipating or working on anything towards deal with potential future growth of actual just population in the area?
Well, first we have to take care of the fact that people don't realize that there's a tremendous growth in east side of El Paso,
Mhm.
and people think it's people from the outside. It's actually organic growth. It's people that lived maybe that were lived in the family, maybe a family of five. They prolonged a little bit of going out, and now they're moving, finding their own homes, and so we have a lot of organic growth, which is really important for El Paso.
Mhm.
But as soon as you can imagine, why did Amazon come to El Paso? People are going to start asking that question, and we know they're growing. They're going to be on the west side of town. You saw TJ Maxx, amazing warehouse. You see them all over the place.
Mhm.
And so, like I said, let's give these opportunities first to our community. That people can start off. Right now, the barriers to entry into getting a business in El Paso are very, very low. So
Mhm.
if you want to start a business today and for the next 4 or 5 years, the barriers to entry are low. But now, if you start looking at later when we get that attraction, remember $40 million of aerospace money just for infrastructure.
Mhm.
That could convert into $1 billion industry. We're right in, we've got the Galactica on one side, and then we've got Blue
Mhm.
Origin on the other side. So we're right in that district that is going to grow tremendously. The county owns some people don't even know this, but we own, we own an airport there in Fabens,
Right.
and we've put in maybe $10 million. We've got hangars, we've got research. We also have a drone park in Tornillo, and that's going to
Mhm.
be extremely important for us. So, those things, the growth, I'm glad it's sort of organic growth for the time being. I know that we see Austin, for example, that you had more and more people coming from California, and it's pretty disruptive if you're not well
Mhm.
established. And so, one of the things that's important, people are barely finding out that doing business in Texas is the same as El Paso, is the same as Austin, is the same in Houston. But for
Okay.
some reason, they really thought doing business in Texas means going to San Antonio, Fort Worth, Dallas, in Austin, and that's not true. We have the same initiatives, we have the same incentives. and it's the same, less restrictions, all the things that Texas is, they've won, I guess, in the last 10 years. They've become the strongest economy of the United States, but they're focusing on that part of the world, and I'm trying to bring that into El Paso to make sure that we have the, our lion's share of economic growth.
Again, if you're just joining us, guest right now is El Paso County Judge Ricardo Samaniego, again, up for re-election on the Democrat side of the ballot in this, again, ongoing and, of course, Election Day on November 8th ballot. You want to find out any more about the policies and, again, platform we're talking about for him, Judge Samaniego, .com. Again, Judge SAMANIEGO.com. And what you're mentioning there about, the business environment particularly and the barrier to entry, of course, we had a lot of challenges coming out of and during the pandemic, and there was more than a little bit of conversation going on the restrictions done there and the damages to business, particularly from our audience here. So particularly on the recovery needed from that and, the business restrictions and things like that. I mean, where do you stand on your record on that? And what would you be doing if there were to be any comparable situation again in the future?
That's one of the best questions that people can ask, because people are confusing what happened. Our healthcare was breaking down. There was people that had died. They were in the on the actual hallways. It was taking 10 to 12 hours for somebody to pick up a loved one's body. Things were breaking down, and when the healthcare system breaks, everything else breaks loose. And we were at a critical point. We had 14 semi trucks. I had the unfortunate experiences of walking through those trucks when there was 100 people in body bags, and very, very, it was really difficult. And so while I was in the trenches, people were outside thinking, I'm making mistakes, I'm not doing the right thing. But if you notice, as soon as, and people say that I closed a lot longer, but it was actually 14 days that we shut down. And when you look at the graph, the numbers started coming down. We were the worst per capita at one time in the world, and then in the country. And then we became the first to reach herd immunity in Texas and the third in the United States. And so we went from a really difficult situation. But to me, it was like a stopgap to say, okay, we've got to stop this situation. The nurses were no longer wanting to be there. People were getting into a car accident and not being able to be seen. People might have died more from heart attacks and all kinds of things because we were saturated in the hospitals. And people don't realize that, the year before, we had 875 people that had high, were there in intensive care because of the flu. And people don't know that people had died, and a lot of people had died when we started wearing the masks. Believe it or not, we went from 875 cases during the pandemic when I put the mandate on the mask. We went down to 52 cases versus 800 of severe. So if you could imagine, we don't wear the mask, and you combine the flu with that situation, it would have been disastrous. So I was right up front, and I had to make a lot of decisions. I was very fortunate that afterwards I met with all the small businesses, and I'd say about 90% of them have agreed that that's the best thing could have happened, because all of a sudden we turned it around. We went from mandates to, fights with the governor to all kinds of things to finally, I pleaded with the community. Hopefully I was a trusting voice and said, come on, let's do this. We can do this. We've done some incredible things with the Walmart shooting. We ended up with a beautiful healing garden instead of a chaos. And I said, let's do this. And we started turning it around. Now, so that's the back end of it. If you look at going forward, because we have the pandemic, we have the vaccine, and we have the booster, and we know how to handle the situation, I do not anticipate that it could, as worse as it could get. I remember when the governor and others were saying that we could coexist. To me, when you're in the trenches and things are falling apart and people are there was places on top of the second floor next to the medical examiners where people were gathering and crying, and it was really difficult. And so for us to talk about coexistence at that time, to me, was ridiculous. But now it isn't. Now we have the booster. We know how to work with this. We don't know how to shelter. We know how to social distance. We have everything set up for us to have dividers and everything else. We can coexist, and we don't need to shut down. We don't need to do anything like that. I think El Paso could handle it. We had a spike and it went down pretty quickly because people just knew when to wear the mask, when not to wear the mask. They knew how to social distance. They took their booster. They got the vaccine. We cannot. I mean, people don't realize we had nothing. We had no weapons. The other thing that I'm really working hard on, Andrew, is the fact that the first protection, the very, very first protection against the virus is being healthy.
Mm-hmm.
And so now we've got a master plan with all the parks and Escalante Park. We've got trails. We've done a lot of things to address that. 95% of the 3,500 people that died actually had underlying conditions.
Mhm.
And so that means that, that's a difficult situation. We uncovered being one of the highest in the country of indices of diabetes, of cancer, heart conditions. And so that's what we're addressing. One of the things that never was taken away from us was the outdoors. Never was that taken away from us. So we've expanded our master plan to have things outdoors. We've asked, bars and restaurants now have patios. And
Mm-hmm.
so now you could go into the patio area. So we're in a totally different situation. And I really feel that because of my relationship with I followed the science as much as I could, try to get away from the politics, but I got to meet a lot of doctors, a lot of people that are interested. Also in Mexico, I have a great relationship with them when I get on Mexican stations, I talk to them as if I'm talking to people from here about being preventive, being careful, because the symbiotic relationship that we have with Juarez, we can't afford to think that when we have a strategy, and that's one of the things we didn't have at the beginning, is our strategy didn't include Mexico. And we weren't doing as much. Then, as most of people know, I was able to vaccinate 35,000, a little under 35,000 maquiladora workers and raramuri, native Mexicans that were there that would have never gotten vaccinated, and that would have exploded the virus even higher. But we started vaccinating. As humanitarian as it sounds, Andrew, it's not all humanitarian. We did it to prevent us from getting more people coming into our community that had COVID. And so it was very strategic, and we're hearing, there's an uptick. There's some issues that are going to be coming up. Dr. Caranzo will be talking to us on Monday about some concerns that he might have about November, late November. So if we wear a mask when we have a cold, then we don't have the flu. And then if you have the flu and then you get COVID, you can get extremely sick. We also know that we were targeting the wrong population. And as why were we focusing on the non-vulnerable people are not that vulnerable? Now the first thing that we do is we're going to make sure that that the senior centers are taken care of properly, that the people 60 and above that we vaccinate them quickly so that they can get their booster. So we know we've learned a lot, and it would be unfortunate that because of everything that I've learned, that we don't continue utilizing that knowledge to go forward. I think this is not a good time to pivot on someone that it doesn't understand, that hasn't been in these levels and extreme levels. One of the things that I always say is that with all my degrees, with all my background, working with Fortune 500 companies, as a consultant, operating my own businesses, I was tested to no end. I have been in a lot of different things, like I said, running large organizations. I've never been tested. My skills, my abilities, my background has never been tested the way it's been tested now. So you need to be really qualified for this position. It's a 75, 80-hour job. And I can tell you, and I'm very proud that, and you can check the records, in the last 4 years, including budget hearings, special sessions, Monday sessions, I've only missed one day, and that was in 2019. And I have not missed any commissioner courts, any special sessions, or anything through these 4 years. So my record of that I said from the beginning, I will not be outworked. And I hope the community sees that.
Again, if you're just joining us, guest right now, Ricardo Samaniego, El Paso County Judge, and of course, Democratic nominee for the same position, seeking another term here, and information about the policies, his platform, and things related to it. JudgeSamaniego.com, the place to find it. One other point I want to make sure we get to here. I mean, you've addressed a lot of your platform as part of this, responses and your vision for what comes next here. Wanted to bring up of course, what has been going on with the immigration situation, the county involved in its own way, and even as we were looking at, as we were discussing last segment, a potential kind of downturn based on some of the federal policies, of course, that have come out, the Title 42 enforcement, and therefore community releases under, according again to the City of El Paso's Migrant Crisis Dashboard. There are, of course, a couple of county facilities that have been stood up in response to this. But essentially is the plan there, and essentially what will be the plan going forward. There were some notable statements from yourself, among other things, about preparedness before the current situation go on. What is your perspective on how that has worked out and kind of plans and eyes towards the future of dealing with this situation, again, particularly if reelected?
Well, first of all, people need to realize that I've been working on this for 4 years. I've been meeting either every Friday or every other Friday. The bishop and I started this consortium of having all the immigration agencies, the NGOs. We have Eric Kahn from the U.S. consulate in Mexico. We have Mauricio Ibarra, the Mexican consulate, and we've been meeting. And that's why, if you look at what's happening in Del Rio, San Diego, in those areas where they had up to 15,000 people on the bridge. So when people tell me we had 700, I can tell you, if it were not well coordinated and the relationships that I have with Chief Chavez, we would have 10, 12,000 people out on the bridge. So, do you look at it, the glass half empty or the glass half full? And I'm extremely, extremely proud. You can't imagine, if Ken Salazar, the ambassador, comes here, the first thing he says, he's never seen the collaboration in any part of in any border city. When we have Mayorkas, the secretary, Mayorkas has been here. First thing he said was, "My goodness, this is what a great coordination that we have." So this relationship that we have, and the other thing is that, and I want to focus that when we do something humanitarian, even though I had my background started as a clinical therapist, which is pretty rare for a clinical therapist to be a county judge. I've been a psychologist, but then a juvenile probation officer, worked in prisons, went into HR, started running companies, and then I ended up, being a county judge. So it really has helped me to do that. But I don't do things just for humanitarian reasons. When we process people the right way and we do it efficiently, they leave our community, they go to other places quickly. They don't want to be here in El Paso. They're vulnerable. They feel like they should be more into the interior. And then they go to communities that are very large, that have their ethnicity, their countries are in New York, Detroit, all of these areas. So when I get people to move quickly, instead of having them, imagine the impact. If we don't do this properly, and I say, well, we shouldn't be having this problem, and I sit on my laurels and think just sort of bust them out of here kind of attitude, we're going to have economic impact. Tourism would be affected, because people are going to come in and see a lot of people out in the downtown areas. They're going to be all over the place, like they are in Del Rio and Laredo and all of these other areas. So as much as I look at it from a humanitarian, it's also managing a crisis that doesn't impact our community, that it keeps our community safe, that the economy doesn't get impacted. And we cannot just sit there and say this shouldn't happen. And that's the attitude a lot of people have, is it just shouldn't happen. We shouldn't be doing this. We don't manage the number of people coming through. We manage the crisis. So we have nothing to do from a local government. I have nothing to do with whether or not people come in. We make mistakes. I know the city was busing them, and then that became wow, there's a free ticket, and it drew. But we've already stopped that. The process center that we have moves people 300 to 400 now. We're going to try to get to 700. That means on the very same day, we get them on a bus, we get them on a plane, and we get them elsewhere. We've already communicated with Houston, because our capacity to move people is very limited compared to Dallas and these areas. So we now have buses that are paid for in Houston by NGOs, that actually take our people to Houston, and then from Houston they can go elsewhere. I'll give you an example at our process center. One of the it was going to cost them $850 to go to Atlanta, and by moving them into Houston, it was going to cost them $150. So the more we do to make it efficient, the more our community is going to be looked at as a process center. El Paso means, the path. We've been doing this for centuries. People have come here to, we're the Ellis Island of the Southwest. And so it's not something that's going to go away. People, it's convenient. You can come all the way to the border, which means that people are dropped off in buses right there by the border. So we're always going to have this challenge. But if we become the best process center, that we get people quickly moving in the right direction. Right now, it's not a space issue; it's a volunteer issue.
Mm-hmm.
All the churches, the diocese, the bishop are trying to open the churches back up to help us with this situation, but they don't have the people, they don't have the personnel. So I can tell you that it behooves us to make sure that we move people properly and that we don't stall. Anytime that it stalls, and look at what's happening to Juarez right now. Their shelters are full. People, they're being pried on. There's all kinds of things. And so my philosophy has always been, if you keep the process going, you have less problems. And that's what we're going to be. Let's get them to their destinations. Larger communities that can handle them. Not even a 0.1%, half of a percent of people, 360 plus people, 1,000 people or immigrants have gone through El Paso. Not even a percentage point have stayed in El Paso because we're moving people quickly and rapidly into other areas. So I think the community needs to understand that we do very well, and that other communities can get look at what happened to New York. They wanted them, and now they're telling us, hey, we don't know what to do with them.
Right.
And so I think our lane is really getting people through properly, humanely, and getting them into other destinations.
Again, guest right now has been El Paso County Judge Ricardo Samaniego. Again, any of the details on both his policies and some of the, planks he has in his platform for this reelection. Again, election ongoing now, but of course, election date, November 8th, judgesamaniego.com. That's Judge, SAMANIEGO.com. So Judge Samaniego, thank you very much for coming by today to talk to us about some, of course, your platform, your policies, and the responses, and what people need to know about them here today.
Any chance I can promote the Veterans Capital of the USA?
Quickly, yeah, we're almost out of time here for the show.
Yeah. Hey, listen, the best thing is going to happen to El Paso is going to be November the 1st. I've been working on this initiative for 4 years now. And on November the 4th, we're going to be entitled the Veterans Capital of the United States. And so that is, we've never had a moniker. And somebody said, yes, we have. We're the Sun City. And I said, well, that's giving credit to the sun and not to our community. And so this is going to be a big thing for us. We've never been recognized other than we have migrant issues and we have a wall and all these negative things. And, El Paso, to know us is to love us. And when we go out there and we become the Veterans Capital of the USA, it's going to be a great thing for El Paso. We're doing a great promotion. Be out there. We're going to honor our veterans. We're going to tell you who the next Veteran of the Year is going to be, which is also an initiative that I started 4 years ago. Go to the Coliseum, 6 o'clock. It's going to be an amazing event. And finally, our veterans are going to get be honored the way they should have been honored for a long time ago.
Okay, again, information on that, again, judgesamaniego.com. So again, Judge Samaniego, thank you very much for talking to us about as much as we could cram into the show here today. Appreciate it. All right, we got to go ahead and take that next break right now. Coming out of this break, we have some calls in line. We'll get to those, squeezing what we can before the end of the show. So stay tuned. More Talk El Paso after this break here on News Radio 690 KTSM.
El Paso's News Radio 690 KTSM.
I'm Selena Madrid with your CBS 4 News updates. An altercation between two roommates at an assisted living center has left one man dead. Police responded to what they are calling a possible homicide at the Loving Care Assisted Living Center Monday night. They were told by staff that a fight had broken out involving a 62 and 88-year-old man. Police tell us the two men were roommates and the fight took place in their room. The reason for this altercation has not yet been released, but we have been told that Crimes Against People is currently investigating this incident. Police believe the 88-year-old man is responsible for the other man's death. This is still a developing story, but we'll continue to keep you updated both on air and online at CBS4Local.com. And while you're there, be sure to sign up for our CBS4 newsletter. It's easy and it's free, and we'll send it straight on over to your inbox. Just go ahead and head on to CBS4Local.com, enter your email address, and from there you will start receiving our daily news update straight to your inbox. I'm Selena Madrid with your CBS4 News Update.
News Radio 690. Traffic all day.
A couple of crashes on the I-10 westbound is slowing traffic quite a bit from the Loop to the Patriot. I-10 westbound at Trowbridge, an earlier crash has got 3 vehicles off on the right shoulder. I-10 westbound slow from Airway to Reynolds with 10-minute delays. Stop and go all the way. I-10 westbound at George Dieter on-ramp. There's an accident there with police and medical. And an injury accident in Zaragoza northbound at Americas Avenue. Carrie Edwards, El Paso traffic.
From the CBS 4-Warn Weather Center, I'm meteorologist Brad Montgomery. Not bad for this afternoon. Clear skies, lots of sun. We'll see high around 68 degrees with the light winds. It'll feel even warmer. Lows tonight on the cold side once again, down into the 30s and 40s. So layer up for your Wednesday morning. Even milder for tomorrow with breezy conditions. We'll see a high around 74 degrees on Wednesday. From the CBS 4-Warn Weather Center, I'm meteorologist Brad Montgomery.
This report is paid for by the Texans for Greg Abbott.
Political ad paid for by Texans for Greg Abbott.
Beto O'Rourke stands with radical groups who want to defund the police. Governor Abbott stands with law enforcement so they can keep Texas families safe. Greg Abbott, Governor.
The El Paso Community Foundation supports the causes you feel passionate about here in the borderland, whether it's education, social services, arts and culture, the environment, health, or economic development. The El Paso Community Foundation has been promoting philanthropy and progress in our hometown region for more than 45 years. Make your mark with us. Start a fund today for good, for El Paso, forever. Learn more at epcf.org. That's epcf.org.
Hey, Mario Courtney Lopez here. We know how important it is to be confident in all of life's close-up moments.
And bad breath can rob you of your confidence.
Yeah, it can. Whenever I'm rubbing elbows with celebrities or friends or just chilling at home, I got to make sure I have the confidence that comes with Smart Mouth mouthwash.
Smart Mouth is clinically proven to eliminate and prevent bad breath for 24 hours with just 2 rinses a day.
Get to your favorite retailer right now for that kind of better together confidence.
Find Smart Mouth at your favorite retailer or at smartmouth.com/radio.
Talk El Paso, bringing you the biggest stories from the borderland and beyond, 4 to 6 p.m. every weekday, brought to you in part by Sergio Lewis Body Shop. Call the pros at 915-593-0191. That's Talk El Paso, Monday through Friday at 4, right here on News Radio 690 KTSM.
This report is paid for by the Texans for Greg Abbott.
Political ad paid for by Texans for Greg Abbott.
Beto O'Rourke stands with radical groups who want to defund the police. Governor Abbott stands with law enforcement so they can keep Texas families safe. Greg Abbott, Governor.
On a busy construction site, things can be misinterpreted. Bring in the bulldozer can sound a lot like
building looks mediocre.
Designs need a do-over.
Or even
Install a roller coaster? Okay.
be on the same page at every stage with Autodesk, from the designers to the field crew to the owner of the finished building. Autodesk Construction Cloud gives everyone clarity. Now, can we actually bring in the bulldozer?
Catch the show in the sky and help support the fight against cancer with the 4th annual Flight to Fight Cancer Research Awareness Fly-In on October 29th at the Doña Ana International Jetport, hosted by Francis Aviation and the War Eagles Air Museum, and powered by News Radio 690 KTSM and Sunny 99.9. Kicking off at 10 a.m. with skydiving, airplane exhibitions, and much more on the ground. Sponsored by Rise Federal Credit Union, A&B Labels, Great American Steak Burger on North Yarborough, and Papalog. Details on Facebook and Instagram at Cancer Flight. Recognized by the American Cancer Society and a Relay for Life team.
Political ad paid for by Texans for Greg Abbott.
Beto O'Rourke stands with radical groups who want to defund the police. Governor Abbott stands with law enforcement so they can keep Texas families safe. Greg Abbott, Governor.
This report is paid for by the Texans for Greg Abbott.
News Radio 690 KTSM.
Live from the KTSM AM 690 studios, it's Talk El Paso with Andrew J. Polk. To be a part of the show, follow on Facebook at facebook.com/Talk El Paso. Now here's your host, Andrew J. Polk.
Thank you all so very much for having joined us here for Talk El Paso. I've been your host, Andrew J. Polk. Best laid plans, y'all. But, of course, we'll be back with the phone calls and everything tomorrow and hopefully get some of the social media stuff worked out. I know a lot of commentary has been going on, but trying to get out as much information as we can, cramming them in as we do. So I'll have to leave it there for today because we are super beyond out of time. I want to thank everyone that did tune in, call in, comment. We're unable to get to your calls. I appreciate your patience. But, of course, again, do it tomorrow, 4 to 6 p.m. as we do. So in the meantime, I want to, again, thank everyone who did tune in. The calls, comments, everything really make this what it is, even if we're not able to get to as much as we usually do. But we'll get back on track. So stay safe out there. Look twice for motorcycles when out on the road. And have a great evening, y'all. We'll see you tomorrow.
Traffic all day. News Radio 690
A couple of crashes on the I-10 westbound is slowing traffic quite a bit from the Loop to the Patriot. I-10 westbound at Trowbridge, an earlier crash has got 3 vehicles off on the right shoulder. I-10 westbound slow from Airway to Reynolds with 10-minute delays. Stop and go all the way. I-10 westbound at George Dieter on-ramp. There's an accident there with police and medical. And an injury accident in Zaragoza northbound at Americas Avenue. Kerry Edwards, El Paso traffic.
38 years ago, Greg Abbott's back was broken, but his spirit was not. Greg Abbott never gave up. Today, that same determination drives Greg Abbott to keep Texas strong. That means expanding opportunities so Texas continues to lead the nation in job creation, energy production, and exports. It means ensuring our police are fully funded because we can't prosper unless we're safe. It means securing the border to prevent deadly drugs and gangs from entering our country. And it means funding education so every child has the opportunity to succeed to their God-given potential. As governor, Greg Abbott has always had big dreams for every single Texan.
Through hard work and big dreams, each of us can succeed. Texas is the place where that promise still remains true.
Governor Greg Abbott, securing the future of Texas.
Political ad paid for by Texans for Greg Abbott.
Portions of the following program were pre-recorded.
News on the hour and a half. Traffic and weather all day. News Radio 690 is KTSM AM El Paso, an iHeart radio station.
NBC News Radio. I'm Brian Shook. The White House says Russia needs to negotiate in good faith for the release of American prisoners like Brittany Griner and Paul Whelan. White House spokeswoman Karine Jean-Pierre says what happened in court proceedings regarding Griner in Russia is terrible.
We are disappointed but what we saw today, but not surprised by the outcome. These judicial proceedings are a sham.
Jean-Pierre said the negotiations start and end with Russia and added they need to step up to the table for any progress to be made. The 19-year-old who killed 2 people and wounded over half a dozen others at a St. Louis high school was armed with an AR-15 style rifle. Police added he also had 600 rounds of ammunition and more than a dozen high-capacity magazines. The St. Louis police chief said the shooting could have been much worse. President Biden is advising Americans to stay up to date on their COVID vaccinations. Speaking before getting his own updated shot, Biden said not enough people are protecting themselves. He added many people are still dying each day. Some residents in Northern California are shaken up after a 5.1 magnitude earthquake struck near San Jose this morning. Nika Magahi says more.
The United States Geological Survey said it was followed by a 3.1 magnitude aftershock. All Bay Area trains have halted service. The Santa Clara County Fire Department tweeted it hasn't received any calls for service. Meantime, the National Weather Service said it felt the quake at its office in Monterey, 70 miles away.
A lawsuit is being filed in Chicago that claims a hair straightener manufactured by L'Oreal causes cancer. Plaintiff Jenny Mitchell says